Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Listen Up, the Girl Up ESCP podcast. My name is Diane. I'm here with Kosti today, and I'm actually going to pass on the proverbial mic to her to explain what Girl Up is, what Listen Up is, and most importantly, who she is. Kosti, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Diane, and hello everyone to our first ever episode. Today we're going to speak about a very important topic that Diane will introduce in a moment. But before we do that, we wanted to introduce Listen Up a little bit to you, as well as talk about where we are from, so Girl Up ESCP, which is our beautiful society, and who we are. So let's kick things off with this podcast in general. So us at Girl Up ESCP have founded this new podcast, Listen Up, where we want to raise awareness and talk openly about a lot of topics that are stigmatized in the world of gender equality, and a lot of topics that we just need to talk about more and need to explore and want to explore and hear different opinions about. About our society, we are at ESCP, and our society is Girl Up ESCP, which is a subsidiary of the official Girl Up organization funded by UN. Diane and I are in the marketing team, and personally, I am a master's student at ESCP, and I'm very excited about today. So please, Diane, if you'd like to take over and introduce yourself.
Okay, if you insist. So my name is Diane. You'll have heard it a few times already. I am in my first year of the Masters in Management at ESCP currently, and I am a queer woman who is also a pole dancer. So I have had, dare I say, more than my fair share of experience with gender-related issues. And I am so excited today to talk about this first topic, which is that of slut-shaming. Now, before we dive into the thick of it, I do want to start us off with a couple disclaimers. With any heavy topic like this, it is bound to have some things we need to talk about first, right? The first being, in this episode, we will be talking about men and women in the binary. That doesn't mean we don't recognize the complexity of gender issues and of slut-shaming and like the gender spectrum, the existence of other genders, gender identities, etc. However, this problem is mainly faced by women today, and also we do want to keep this podcast accessible and thus keep our language as simple as possible. The second disclaimer is that women are still very oppressed in a lot of parts of the world, and we are keenly aware of those issues, of course. However, our discussion today is going to focus on slut-shaming, which happens specifically in countries that proclaim themselves to be sexually liberated. And so we're going to focus our analysis on Western countries. That doesn't mean we are actively ignoring the others. They're just not the best suited to today's analysis. Now for the actual content. Kosti, what's slut-shaming to you?
Slut-shaming, I think it starts with generally the open sexualization of any woman. Also simply discussing about the sexual activities of other human beings, or sexualizing them in any kind of way in front of that person or not in front of that person, so talking behind someone's back. I think that already to me is slut-shaming. What about you?
No, I totally hear you. I think traditionally you think of slut-shaming more as this like, oh my God, you had sex with people? That's like, ew. But you're so right that it is so much wider than that. It is just the fact that people feel comfortable talking about people's sexualities, which is such a weird thing.
Right?
Right?
That's my business.
Yeah, sexual liberation says it's a big part of feminism, to start with, the idea that women can choose their own sexual partners and they're free to have sex with whoever they want. But then you turn around and when they do have sex, you talk about it and you judge them for it. And then you go and call them names, which is why we call it slut-shaming. There's a reason that term is used.
So I think it's also important to understand the origins of slut shaming when we talk about this topic,
Mhm.
because it's not like it was just born yesterday, quite the contrary. And we know that it's deeply, deeply rooted into a lot of history and a lot of different cultures and phenomena. So, Diane, do you want to speak a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I mean, to me, slut shaming at its root comes from men wanting to keep women oppressed, right? And that's existed across ages, across cultures, regions of the world. It's happened everywhere. Let's be real here. It's not a fun time for women throughout history. So to me, the origins come from that, where men would insult and degrade women by using terms like this, even centuries, decades ago, right? I mean, in France, we have this term of the femme libertine, which is this woman that like goes around and gets with whoever she wants. And that is said with a strong negative connotation, right? And it is an old term. It's not, as you said, it doesn't come from yesterday. And at one point, women turned around and said, well, if you're going to call me a slut anyways, I might as well do what I want. And then started acting the way they wanted, and men did not like that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like slut shaming is really just a subsection of generally shaming women. I think the origins are so deeply rooted in just the oppression of women in any sort of form and within any topic.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would describe myself as fairly liberated. You've heard some things. But even then, like I don't have sex with people much. I like
Yeah.
kissing people. I like flirting with people. I'm not having sex with everyone I meet. And yet, even when I was 17, 18, yeah, I just got to uni. I was having fun and I got shamed so much for flirting with people at bars, dressing a little provocatively. And it was not about the act itself, it was about the fact that I let myself act that way. I got shamed just because I wasn't ashamed to be me and I was okay with being unapologetically me. And people did not like that. They wanted me to stay nice and shy and submissive and going, oh God, what will the men think of me? And that's just so silly.
Frankly, I feel the same way. I really have experienced slut shaming, I think, in a very limited form in my own experience. I have seen slut shaming very closely to a much wider degree, especially to friends that I've had in high school. I think that slut shaming was sort of a daily thing, right? Even if you just put on a little bit more makeup, or just give off the impression that you want to look nice or want to, or
Oh,
just,
yeah.
being yourself or getting ready for a night out, you already get slut shamed. Like, it's a very normal, like, daily thing, right? Especially, I think, in until the first years of university, it's something that I started experiencing quite a lot, especially in my first year of my bachelor's degree. Just kind of in a both in a very passive way, so without people actually saying anything, it's just a matter of also behavior towards you, but also in an active way.
See, the fact that you had no reaction to sharing this shows just how banalized it's become for us. It's become so normal for, honestly, any woman you encounter in your life will be like, oh yeah, no, I've had that said to me countless times, and that's not normal.
Yeah.
And that is such a deeply rooted issue that people are just glancing over.
I think it's also so deeply rooted within ourselves to think about these things daily, because I remember growing up, for example, I was not allowed to wear leggings without anything covering my ass, right? And it like sets your own mindset into this is too sexual to do, right?
Yeah, and it is then perpetuated by people all throughout your life, right? If you look at grandmothers, mothers to you, it's to protect you from the gazes of weird people. But then you get older and it becomes people your own age from your own circles that will tell you, like, oh my God, are you really going out dressed like that?
Yeah.
And it goes from wanting to protect to just pure shaming. And in my undergraduate, I was an economics minor, and we talked about game theory. And it's really interesting to look at social situations like this with a game theory perspective, because we're socialized to think that we should all give the same thing to people, right? And if this other girl than me is dressing more provocatively and, say, having sex with people earlier on, then she's setting the bar high, and I feel like I have to match it. And thus, the instinct that we are given is to then tear her down so that I don't have to go further than what I'm comfortable with.
Oh, yeah.
By tearing the other down and shaming her, not only are you, again, like bringing her down and destroying her confidence, you are keeping yourself stuck in that mindset that, oh, I can't dress like that. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do that. That's not okay. And everyone loses. You picked the wrong spot in the zero-sum game.
That's exactly what happens, and that's exactly what happened to me too, I think. I mean, I've been doing a lot of work on myself when it comes to unconscious bias, for example, right? So because it's normal to have thoughts that are like commanded by our unconscious bias, because it's wired within ourselves, within the way that we grew up. And the important thing is that once we do have thoughts that come from our unconscious bias, to recognize those and revert them.
I don't know if you've encountered it, but there's a saying that's like, your first thought is what you were taught, your second thought is who you are. And it is such an important thing to keep in mind as you go about your life. Because, yeah, I'll see someone wearing, I'll go with your example, wearing leggings and go, oh my God, is she wearing that? And then my second thought will be like, no, what the hell, she's fine.
Exactly.
And it's important to notice the difference between those and realize where they come from in your mind, and then learn to unbuild the first one and separate yourself from those thoughts. Mind you, that's how you were raised. It's got a huge impact on who you are, and they're going to stay with you. I'm not saying by doing a little bit of work on yourself, they can disappear forever. That's not how psychology works, but you can learn the difference between those thoughts and recognize which ones are truly yours and which ones aren't serving you.
I have to completely agree with your point on that. And I genuinely think that the problem lies within a lot of people not being able yet to recognize their unconscious bias. Because, for example, I myself have a lot of thoughts that come from my unconscious bias every single day. If you're able to catch onto it and think, wait, why am I thinking that? Am I thinking that because of how I grew up or because of what was taught to me? And you're able to answer that with yes and recognize that that's wrong. That's how we move forward, in my opinion. And that's what a lot more people need to be able to do. And I really think that that's where the progress in terms of slut shaming stops.
I think it's not a topic people are comfortable exploring mentally. They'll be like, oh, she shouldn't wear that, and then just stop there in their minds. Like, some people will recognize that that thought is wrong, but they won't do the work to unbuild it and gradually remove themselves from there, right? And they'll just stay stuck in that little, I was going to say bubble, but I'm actually going to say hole, because it's not a nice little bubble. We want to get out of there. And yeah, I mean, I mentioned in our nice little introductions, I am a pole dancer, and I have encountered so much aggressive slut shaming. It's not even just little comments here and there. I had people in my Instagram comments say, oh my God, you should go back to the strip club. Oh my God, what's she going to take off next? And that is shocking. And that at that point, the moment you choose to write that down and press send, it is no longer a first thought. It has become your second thought, and you've internalized it. And that is how it becomes your own belief rather than just one you were raised with. And when it becomes your own belief, that is where the problem lies, because you will then share that belief onto others and perpetuate the problem.